because that's easy enough to play in your mind. That'll be an emo on both times.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. I'm cool, he shrieked. Okay, so then we got that. And then we got Shabbat for love. We got the Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
The melody with which we began our Shabbat service this evening is seasonal. It's a mournful nigun, a mournful melody whose words, which we did not sing, will be offered at the beginning of our ritual for Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which will be observed at sundown next Wednesday and on Thursday, is the day on the Jewish calendar that commemorates historical tragedy, the destruction of the first temple, the destruction of the second temple, and even events like the expulsion of the Jewish community from Spain and Portugal, and the Shoah, and tragedy writ large is linked in the Jewish memory and the Jewish calendar to Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. And so we're at a time of year that is one for mourning. I have been off the bima for the last few weeks, not in a state of mourning, happily to report. But I was in Israel 2 Shabbatot ago. And I will tell you that this is a time to be concerned and to raise our voices in lament out of love, out of commitment, and out of connection for our brothers and sisters in Israel. I'm sure you are aware that the country is at a point of internecine conflict between those who support overhauling the judiciary and taking away the democratic foundations of the world's only Jewish state, and those who are raising their voices week after week after week in protest. Our reform movement, out of a sense of responsibility, love, commitment, and covenant with Israel, joins those who are protesting in the name of democracy. We, Reform Jews, believe that it is possible to be a state that is Jewish in character and fully committed to the equality of Israel's minorities who are not Jewish. And that's what's at stake here. And not only that, the rights of those who are part of the LGBTQ community and the rights of women in Israel are at stake. And that's why this matters. Our vision of Israel is one that is rooted in the ideals of the Enlightenment and also in the values of the prophetic tradition that calls for us to be a light unto the nations. So I'm not going to stop talking about Israel, and our community is not going to stop connecting with Israel, because when times are difficult for the Jewish people, we draw strength from our connection. But there's something appropriate about entering this time of year where we remember that in the rabbinic imagination, the destruction of the temple was actually not because the Babylonians or the Romans came in with their marauding hordes to fell these ancient structures, but rather, as the rabbis taught, it was because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred within the Jewish community, that actually undid our community. So it's nice to be back. It's nice to pray with you. It's nice to lift up voices in melody. I'm especially grateful to do so in the presence of Cantor Amanda Kleinman and Cantor Isaac Sanat Asor, who joined our congregation officially as our assistant cantor on July 1st, immediately got COVID, got better, and is with us tonight. And this is my first service with Cantor Sanat Asor as Cantor Sanat Asor. I also want to acknowledge that our congregation is lifting up a heartfelt Mazal Tov and Shehechianu prayer for Rabbi Sasha Bacon, who tomorrow evening will stand under the chuppah with her beloved Rowie Rennert. And in answer to the question that's on all of your minds, Rowie is keeping his name. As is Rabbi Bacon. And we wish her lots of mazel, and Cantor Kleinman and I look forward to dancing with her and her loved ones tomorrow night, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll celebrate when she comes back from a much-deserved post-wedding little mini-moon. We also want to wish Shabbat Shalom to all who are joining us via our live stream. We're going to continue our service now by kindling lights for Shabbat. Please join us as we offer our prayers. Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue welcoming Shabbat now on page 142 with the words of Shalom Aleichem. We'll move straight from Shalom Aleichem into Lecha Dodi, which you can find if you turn back a few pages to 138. But we'll remind you, we'll sing Lecha Dodi today to the same melody with which we began our service. It's customary on the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av to sing the Misinai tune, the ancient melody that is associated with this day of mourning on the Jewish calendar. First, though, page 142, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Lishalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon.
rise as our call to prayer, page 146, is pronounced Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. The Jewish calendar is made up of concentric circles, and the natural passage of time continues in tandem with the cycle of Torah. In this season, as the 9th of the month of Av approaches, we are in the midst of a particularly rare occurrence. In 1923, Eastern European Jewish leaders proposed the Daf Yomi program, a new study cycle intended to unite the global Jewish community by studying a single page of Talmud a day. The cycle of 2,711 pages takes roughly 7.5 years to complete. For the second time ever in this century-old program, we are reading the passages detailing the destruction of ancient Jerusalem during the weeks leading up to the 9th of Av. The sages of the Talmud describe the Roman siege of Jerusalem in great deal, and as the city is all but lost, one of the leading rabbis, Yochanan ben Zakkai, fakes his own death so that he might escape the city and negotiate with the soon-to-be emperor Vespasian. Vespasian says to him, "Ask me something that I can give you." And ben Zakkai responds, "Give me Yavne and its sages, do not destroy it." Yavne, located about 10 miles south of modern-day Tel Aviv and Yafo, would become the new center of Jewish learning as the Jewish community reinvented itself following the destruction of the temple. Ben Zakkai cannot stop the wars of nations, but he can ensure that learning will prevail. So as the Talmud moves on from the end of Jewish life as our rabbis knew it, what is their next topic of conversation? Accommodations for people with disabilities, the granting of synagogue honors and aliyot, protections for the rights of the needy. All tangible solutions well within our control, all done for the sake of darchei shalom, the ways of peace. The rabbis teach, aren't all the laws of the entire Torah given on account of these ways of peace? As it is written, Daracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, her paths are peace. I find this contrast especially moving as we move through paths of darkness and destruction. There is only one way forth, the ways of learning, the ways of peace. We continue with Ahavat Olam, this blessing for the eternal road of Torah. Page 150. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Mihem chayenu Le'orech yameinu Uvahem neged Yom
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבביך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם מאוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Continue now on page 158.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la la la, ya la 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 la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot osef velech, norat tehilot osef velech. Ya la la la, ya la la like you. We'll try them together. Let's start that one again. Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, Adonai. Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
160.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות השבת לדורותם, לדורותם ברית Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei HaKol.
אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We invite everyone to pray silently. You can follow along in your Sidurim, or you may offer a prayer from the heart. You may choose to remain standing for your prayers, or if it is your custom, you may now take your seats.
רצון אמרי פי, יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart
I am delighted to introduce tonight's guest darshan, the one who offers some words of Torah, both explicating their meaning and also reflecting on them through a personal lens. Mostly, I'm delighted to introduce our guest darshan because it means that this week and throughout these weeks of summer, we rabbis and cantors don't have to deliver the sermon on Friday nights. It is a long-standing and cherished, at least by the clergy, custom of the congregation to invite members of the congregation to share their Torah on the Friday nights of summer. And it's an especial rite of passage, don't call it hazing, for new trustees to our congregation's board of trustees to be asked to deliver a Devar Torah during these summer weeks. And so it's so nice to welcome Dan Bernstein to the board and also to the Bima. Not his first time on the Bima of Westchester Reformed Temple. I think that might have been before your bar mitzvah. Dan and his wife Cheryl have been living here in Scarsdale since 2005 and have raised their sons, Sam, who's 21, which is hard for me to believe, and Andrew, 19. Both became B'nai Mitzvah at WRT and have continued their Jewish learning through confirmation and on to high school graduation and now in college. Cheryl and Dan have been active here at WRT in all sorts of volunteer capacities, Cheryl volunteering as co-chair of the ECC Parent Committee, Dan as member of any number of committees before taking on his trusteeship, which just began in May, having participated in our audiovisual task force, which helped to renovate the AV system here in the sanctuary, and also as a member of a cantorial search committee, though it doesn't say which cantor you searched for. Cantor Kleiman. Thank you. Nice job. He's also participated in many summer stage events. What do all of these volunteer leadership capacities have in common? They all are about music. And Dan's also a musician, a member of the local band, the Del Bocas. He has Jewish leadership deep in his DNA. His parents, Marcia and Joe, joined WRT in 1970. Joe was president of Westchester Reform from 1981 to 1985. Marcia chaired the youth committee. Their memories and their legacy continues to inspire not just the youth of WRT, but also the grown-ups of WRT, including the clergy. And I have many fond memories of your mom and dad and their presence here at WRT, Dan, and I loved when I first came to WRT. Your dad was one of the first to invite me out to lunch, and he wore I wore a blazer that reminded me of Joe Bernstein of blessed memory for tonight's service. Dan has also been active locally in sports as a board member of the Scarsdale Little League and the Scarsdale Baseball Club, as coach of his son's Temple basketball teams, and on and on. And in his other life, he runs a private wealth management practice at Morgan Stanley. So to offer a few words of Torah tonight, when we begin a new book of Torah, the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, happy to have Dan Bernstein hold forth with us.
Remembering the good and the bad, the moments filled with joy and the ones filled with woe. Remembering the times when we're at our best and the times when we could have been better. When a loving rebuke from a loved one might have pulled us back to the place we should have been. Recounting the events that led us to where we are, telling the stories of where we've been and of what we've seen, telling the stories of who did what for whom, and unfortunately, we can't escape recounting the stories of who did what to whom. Our moments of recounting and remembering come in an even-handed way, even when we're forced to remember that we were the ones who did something that we'd just as soon forget. We recount and remember for those around us too, sometimes at a grave site, sometimes at our kitchen tables, sometimes over our kids' objections that the story doesn't need repeating again. But even with all the objections, even with the reminder from Cheryl that she's heard the story many times before, even with the reminder of things that bring such pain that recalling is something we should sidestep, we recount and remember. In this week's Parsha Devarim, before the children of Israel, Moses recounts the events of their 40 years in the desert, rebuking them for their shortcomings and instructing them to keep the Torah and observe the commandments. Moses recounts his appointment of judges to ease his own burden. He recounts the story of the spies and the conquests of the Amorites and Bashanites. Moses remembers the refusal of the nations of Moab and Ammon to allow the children of Israel to pass through their lands. Moses recounts his message to Joshua, who as Moses' successor would lead the Israelite tribes. Moses recounts at length to those assembled before him all that had happened, both good and bad, so the Israelites would not forget. Moses recounts and remembers, hoping that all would remember, remembering even the times when the Israelites were the ones who did something that they'd just as soon forget. Moses knew, and we know, that we humans are unique in the ability to recount and remember. Not reflexive memory, like where the food bowl is, or how the batted ball is going to feel when it hits the shin, but thoughtful, intentional memory that serves a purpose. Moses recounts the story of the 40 years for instruction, but we recount and remember for other reasons. Sometimes we remember something with longing, for when times were better, or outcomes were better, or perhaps when test results were better. But in this case, it's always remembering and wishing for what was, and maybe trying just a little to forget what is. At times, our remembering is an attempt to get a picture of what might happen in the future, an acknowledgement that history can repeat itself, and to be prepared if whatever happened happens again, to gird ourselves for what the future might drop on our plates. Sometimes we remember because it's comfortable. The past, with its full dose of pleasures and hardships, is predictable. We know how the story ends. We know where the joys and the sorrows were in the minefield that we've already crossed, as opposed to the unknowable future where we can never truly be certain where we can safely step. And a fourth reason to remember, one that I learned about only in group bereavement counseling when my sister died 16 years ago. We remember to try, even in our unconscious minds, to correct the past's injustices and losses, to remember, to take the figuratively separated parts of an organized whole and put them back together, to somehow undo the unthinkable losses, even when the putting back together exists only in our unconsciousness. We do it all the time with the hope that this time the outcome will be different. And we remember so as to recognize the wholeness of our past, this time in our fully conscious minds, so that those we lost remain part of us, with their values, their outlooks, their senses of humor, or whatever it is that we carry with us until the end of our time. But Moses is remembering and recounting for yet another reason. He is 37 days from dying, and he's telling of the past to give context to those in front of him. Not to recall better times, they certainly were not. Not to predict what might happen in the future. Not to find comfort in the known in the face of the unknowable. Not to hope for a different outcome, even unconsciously. The pursuit of context is a human one. We long to understand why. The generation in front of Moses is not the same generation that started the trek. This generation needs context to move forward, to understand the why in everything that is to happen, to fully understand the hardships of their forebears, and to have the understanding foster a deep sense of compassion. So here we are, remembering our times, recounting and remembering for those around us, and even for ourselves, where we've been, giving context for what lies ahead as we struggle to understand why, sometimes at a gravesite, sometimes at our kitchen table. May we be granted the ability to remember what was, and sometimes to forget, just a little, what we'd just as soon forget, and to move ahead with meaning and compassion after our own 40 years in the desert.
Thank you, Dan, for helping us remember these words that we read each year, because we actually do need to go and reconstitute the past in order to move forward on that treacherous journey of life. I would add that to be called to remember during the period that leads us into the observance of Tisha B'Av next week is profoundly appropriate. We will join as a congregation in an act of public remembrance, and we will retell the story and mine the events for contemporary meaning in the destructions and tragedies that the Jewish people have confronted. Cantor Sana Asor and I will look forward to leading that service, joined by a special guest from Haifa, Chazan Gabi Dagan, who is going to share a little bit of his Torah. This is a beautiful service. If you've never participated in a Tisha B'Av service, or if you have traumatic memories of Tisha B'Av and fasting and self-deprivation from your Orthodox or perhaps conservative Jewish upbringing, and you'd like a chance to remember what Tisha B'Av could mean in a Reform context, we'd earnestly encourage you to join us this coming Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. 7:30. So the service will take place in the CJL as the sun sets. It's going to be a very beautiful and meaningful evening of remembering, chanting, praying, and learning. Our service will continue on page 371 as we remember those who live in our hearts and in our community and who yearn for healing. It is our custom to draw strength from offering a prayer of healing for them as a congregation, and in this small and ceremonial way to let them know that they're not alone. So I have a list of names that our WRT congregation is holding close. I'd also ask that if you would like to share a prayer of Misha Beirach healing for a loved one, you could stand and offer a name when my eyes meet yours, or you can remain seated and offer your name quietly. Our WRT family tonight is also praying for Binyamin Ben Reuven, Razel Bat Yisrael, Jennifer Leventhal, Jeffrey Millman, Malka Gila Bat Bina, Emerson Lorenzoni, Mindel Shena Bat Soralea, Tova Bat Esther, Robin Weitz, Mitchell Lieberman, Gloria Byron, Alan Kramer, Stephen Gilberg, Yochanan Ben Sipora, Judy Balsam, Ilana Bat Shmuel, Chaya Fega Bat Leah, Leah Bat Nina, Bat Binyamin, Tony and Gina DeLappa, Matthew Atwood, Anthony and Elizabeth Dankner, Debbie Kapnick, Nicole Shusi, Andrew Goldstein, Chava Bat Sara, Eliyahu Chaim Ben Fredel, Sheila Fried, Malka Tzipora Bas Rachel, Tamar Bat Malka, Debbie Greenfield, Leonore Galen Mendelson, Elka Miriam Bat Fega, Jenny Kaufman, Sophia Schenkler, Theo Halpert Hearn, Pradeep Ramamurthy, Zachary Morant, Yitzchak Ben Sara, and Heschel Meir Ben David Achana. We offer our prayer together in song.
Mekor
bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Turn to page 586. Please rise for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
As we prepare to offer the mourner's Kaddish, we remember those who gave of their love, of their wisdom, of their kindness, of their counsel, of their presence, of their humor, of their quirks and silliness. Those who are with us even now, whether we laid them to rest at this time of year in years gone by or only recently, we remember. We would like, in the following order, to acknowledge the mourners in our community by asking you to rise. First, if you have laid to rest your loved one within the last 7 days, would you please rise at this time? Those who are within Shaloshim, a first 30 days of remembering, please rise. And if you are within a first year of remembrance, would you please rise? And those who are observing a yortzeit, the anniversary of a loved one's death, please rise. Now let each of us stand with you in sympathy and in fellowship as we remember. First, we name those taken from our WRT extended family within the last 4 weeks. Judith Z. Weinberg, mother of David Weinberg, Jean Weinberg, and Barbara Grodin, and grandmother of Deborah Grodin, Philip Weinberg, Suzanne Laswell, and Sarah Dynaberg. Jim Misillo, stepfather of Kristen Friedman, Michael Greenfield, cousin of Michelle Smith, Alfred Fields, husband of Devorah Fields, and father of Ephraim Fields and Lisa Fields Lewis, Carol Bacon, mother of Scott Bacon and grandmother of Rabbi Sasha Bacon, David Milberg, brother of Daniel Milberg, Ruth Legum, mother of Blaine Levinson, Tatum Cohen, cousin of Barbara Pollard Stein, and Hope Byers, sister of Charlotte Siegel and aunt of Jonathan Siegel and Lisa Pachetta. And those whose yortzeiten are commemorated on this Shabbat: Riva Blatt, Frida Bossis, Paul Brichta, Selma Clarvit, Charles Cohen, Samuel Dodick, Anita Dominguez, Arthur Epps, Leo Forsheimer, Otto Forsheimer, Mildred G. Frankel, Paul Gendel, William German, Jeffrey Gilman, Selma Glassman, Gloria Goldenberg, Barry Goldoff, Jerome Goldstein, Barbara Goodman, Abraham Gottfried, Esther Gruber, Joseph C. Harris, Morton Holliday, Estelle Jaffe, Leo Kaplan, Lillian Kaufman, Carol Kerner, David Kessner, Robert Kotowitz, Sandra Kreiselman, Esther Leichtman, C. Robert Lemley, Saul Sander Newman, Beatrice Peretz, Lawrence Mark Rifkin, Harry Rosen, Henry Rothenberg, Jim Rothenberg, Harry Seides, Libby Seides, Lena Rothschild, Jody Sandhouse, Jackie Samwick, Helen Scharfman, Ira Shapiro, Hyman Sugar, Diane Silk, Lawrence Silver, Louis Simberkoff, Elizabeth Herman Smith, Robert Weiner, David Wise, and Sylvia Young. If I have inadvertently mispronounced your loved one's name, or if you would like to add additional names for our commemoration, kindly speak them at this time. Tehi zichronam baruch, may the memory of all be for a blessing. We offer the mourner's Kaddish together. You'll find the words on 598. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, b'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam alamei almaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemeid kudusha b'richu. Le'ela minko birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu yasei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Osei shalom bimromav hu yasei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen.
Not to make that loud noise. I'd like to thank our maestro this evening, Pete Malin-Verning. Thank you so much. Our greeter, Bo Cremieux, for greeting us. Our wonderful darshan, Dan Bernstein. As most of you know, there is no bar bat mitzvah service this weekend, and we have Torah service as usual on Saturday at 9. Next Shabbat, our other new trustee, Cynthia Samwick, will be joining us to lead us. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom. After our service, we'll have a nice little oneg out in the lobby, and we hope that you'll join us and introduce yourself to us if you're meeting us for the first time or seeing us for the first time in a long time. And even more importantly, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves to one another, wish one another Shabbat Shalom, learn your faces, learn your stories, and share a word of goodwill on this Shabbat. And we're going to conclude by singing a prayer that is hopeful, because even at a mournful season, perhaps especially at a mournful season, when we gather with the shadow of Tisha B'Av closely looming over us, we end with what our tradition calls a nechemta, a word of comfort. And in particular, this song of comfort places on us the responsibility to create the world in the image of how our prophets envisioned the world as it ought to be, and how God has designed the world from the very first to be a world built on a foundation of love and chesed, of kindness. Olam chesed yibaneh. We shall build this world from love. Will the congregation please rise?
Olam chesed yibaneh. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. Olam chesed Olam chesed
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lemasei v'reishit, ki hu yom techilah lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziyat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta, v'yotanu kidashta mikohanim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Please join us if you are so inclined. You can put your arm around somebody close to you. Ann Rose, I'm putting my arm around you from over here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
B'teavon, Shabbat Shalom.
Right.